In this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to use the Bookings widget. The Bookings widget can be used to create a calendar from which you can set appointments or reservations, and it's very easy to set up. Simply add the widget to the page you wish the calendar to appear. Now, when you create a Bookings widget, it's going to have you create different event types. Now, these events can be used to organize the different reservations or calendars, and each event is separate. So you can use these for different, different people or different, locations, however you want to set that. So simply create an event in order to set it up. You would give the event a name, such as what the event is or what the calendar will be called. For this one, we're going to call it Initial Contact, but you can name it whatever you'd like. The description above the calendar, this is where the text that'll be shown above the calendar, and this should just be a quick note about the event itself. And the description in the booking pop-up is what's going to say in the modal that pops up once you actually select a date. And you would use this to give instructions or additional info. Now the contact email, this is where the actual reservation is going to go after a reservation or bookings is set. So you would enter your email address here, and that's where you'll receive the information. Now the time zone right here, this can be a bit tricky because it really depends on how you want to set up your time and reservations. Now, if you're doing an online or digital event, it might be wise to figure out your local time in the UTC time zone and keep it at UTC because that's pretty universal and it's often useful for people with digital events around the world. However, if you have an actual physical location or you're in a specific time zone, you're going to want to actually set that time zone so that the calendar is local to that specific location. So like I said, if you're doing something online, it's probably wise to use UTC. However, if you're doing something physical, then just go ahead and set your local time zone. Now, the date and time format is simply used to determine how the formatting will be shown, whether you want it month, day, year, or day, month, year. It's very simple. And you can set a picture right here, and that'll appear above the calendar as well. So let's go ahead and select a simple image. It's perfect for the initial contact. And now you can see once we set that and everything's saved, it has set up our calendar right here. There's our picture. There's our initial title. Now, the event duration will determine how long the meeting is. So if you only have 30-minute meetings, it'll block off and allow you to select 30-minute sections. And you can also set a buffer that'll follow between the end of a meeting and the start of the following one. So if your meeting is 30 minutes long, but you want to have a 5-minute break in between each one, it'll add an extra 5 minutes padding in between each meeting. Now, the available seats is the amount of reservations that can be booked within the same time zone. So essentially the amount of seats, whether it's physical or virtual, that are able to be within the same block. So if you only have one seat available, then that means only one person can actually get into that specific time zone within that date. Otherwise, if you have two or more, then multiple people would be able to join that same time zone before it would block it off for future reservations. Now, the hours in advance, this is the minimum hours in which a person can book an appointment. So if you want them to have to book an entire day in advance, you can leave it at 24 hours. But if you want people to come in, to be able to come in within the hour before the meeting starts, you can set it to an hour and they will be able to book within that hour. And the rolling days, this is the amount of future days by which an appointment can be scheduled after you set the availabilities, which we'll go over next. So once you set your availabilities, you would set the rolling days, which is the amount of days those availabilities would carry over. So if you leave it at 7 days, then only 7 days into the future, people will be able to book. Otherwise, you can set it to 30 days and people would be able to book up to a month in advance. And this block multiple bookings, this is important to block the same person from booking multiple slots within a day or per time frame or overall. So what I would recommend is that while you're setting up this calendar and booking widget, set this to no. That way you yourself can actually test it easily and set multiple appointments and bookings without getting blocked. Otherwise, if you leave this to yes, it'll block you, and then you'll have to reset the calendar essentially in order to reactivate it. So set that to no while you're testing. Once you're fully set and tested, you can set this to yes so that people cannot book multiple times, within the same period. After you've set all this, you would go ahead and simply set your availability and your questions. Availabilities are the times in which you are actually available, in which a person can book an appointment on the calendar. So you would set your availabilities for each day that you would like a person to be able to book. Let's say that we own a business and it's open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. So we would simply add those dates to each day. You can enter the time in either a 24-hour format, like so, or by actually entering 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., which I find a bit easier. So simply add your times to each date that you're available, and then that'll add those days to the calendar. But let's say that we are going to be unavailable on a specific day. You can actually set specific day unavailabilities or availabilities using this button. So let's say that we're not going to be available on the 15th, which is a Friday, where we normally would be. We can make this whole day unavailable, or we can set a time zone by which we are available or unavailable. And once we save that, it'll then allow all those dates availability except for that specific one. And you can see when we scroll down, now all Monday through Fridays are now available to book except for the 15th. And that's how you add availabilities. Once you've added availabilities, you're going to want to now add the questions that'll happen after a booking action. So once somebody selects an actual date and time, this will determine the questions that they have to fill out in order to complete the booking appointment. So this is where you would add these fields here. Lots of different types of fields, lots of different types of field types. I would recommend experimenting with these and seeing exactly how they work each one, because they all act a little bit differently. For this one, let's just say we want their email address. So we would select email field, give this a label. The help text describes what they would do. So we can put enter email here. Now the placeholder, this is going to be the gray text that's within the actual text box itself. Kind of like you can see this HTTPS down here, how it's gray. That's a placeholder. And I'll type placeholder so you can see how that looks. Now, mandatory will determine whether they have to fill this out in order to actually proceed. So we want this yes. And now, once we save this, it'll now add that question to the booking widget once they try to select a date. And you can also add an after booking URL. So after they booked, you can have them show an actual URL that they would be able to click, and that would take them to like a thank you page or a different website or maybe a video, however you want to do that. And you can also name the button text here. Now, after you have set up everything with your details, your availability, your questions, and your bookings, if you have an email field within the questions, you can actually set up the autoresponder so that it'll reply back to their email. Please watch the autoresponder tutorial to understand how that works. So now we've saved everything. Let's go ahead and see what this would look like from the customer's perspective. You can see when they go to our website, they have the picture right there. There's the name of the actual event, and acts as a title as well. And then there's our dates and availability. You can see we've actually set up to 30 days out in advance, and they can select a date. Once they select one, they'll be presented with the times. Because we added 30-minute meetings with a 5-minute buffer on each one, it allows them to select 35-minute time blocks. So we would simply select a time we'd like, and then you see the questions we entered right here. There's the email it's asking. There's the help text telling them to enter the email. There's a placeholder that we'd entered. And if we set up our autoresponder, once we set this booking request, they would get a reply from their email, and we're also going to get a reply to the email we set for the initial details. Once they've set their booking reservation, they can then download that as an iCal file, which works with Apple products, or you can download it to the Google Calendar. And then they'll also receive an email. Like I said, if you've set up the autoresponder, you'll receive an email to your contact email automatically. And then that's how easy it is to set up the booking widget.